Welcome to Friendly Frequencies, a podcast that will revolutionize your journey to greatness. My name is Hugh MacLeod. I am traveling the world as an artist, tour guide, and life coach, documenting the powerful lessons that I learn about myself and what it takes to live a life of true happiness and freedom. Living outside the bounds of my comfort zone has brought me more joy and abundance than I ever could have imagined, and I aim to push you a bit further out of your comfort zone with each episode. Thank you for joining me on this journey of transcendent transformation. Okie dokie.
All right.
So we're starting. So, hello everyone. This is a really special, very, very special episode because my dear brother, Hugh, is joining me today. And we have a pretty powerful episode to talk about, a really exciting topic, and it's gonna be all about Hugh today. But I just want to, I've been really excited to. I've actually had it on my list to interview both my brothers at some point, and I've been really excited to share the wisdom that he has, and also the energy that comes from our conversations is like out of this world.
Yes.
Since I've been traveling, when I talk with you on the phone, we are talking for at least an hour, and it's like powerful energy, like no other. So I'm really excited to share that vibration with everyone else. So thank you for being here. And Hugh, do you want to introduce yourself, or
Yeah, most definitely. So of course, Carmen's brother Hugh here. I'm just super excited to be here and be on the Zoom and to be a part of your journey, Carmen, because you have really been inspiring not just myself, but everyone else around the world with what you're doing and how you're chasing after life and, just really just going after what's important to you. And, that speaks volume with your character. And I think, the fact that, us being related, we have a very similar dynamic, but a very different dynamic as well, being male and female. So I think there's going to be a great perspective that you and I each have that's a little bit different, but both are impactful in certain listeners that you have on your podcast too. So I'm just really excited to be here. And, I can give you a little bit of a background about what I do and how what I do with my business and with my personal life. So for anyone that doesn't know me, or is new to listening to Carmen, we were homeschooled growing up as kids. And I think that's one of the biggest catalysts that have impacted my life. And when we were kids, I didn't really think much of it or see what the benefits would do to our lives and how impactful our parents would be on our lives and where we are today and where we're going as well as a huge impact. And so I think, the philosophies around rich dad, poor dad and budgeting our birthdays and going and having our certain allowance or our paydays once every 15th of the month based on our chores or our job is a little bit of a context around how I approach business and why I feel that I'm in the position where financially I have a good head on my shoulder around my finances. So that's a little bit more around my personal experience around, growing up, being homeschooled, now in the field of real estate, and been in the active industry full-time for 3 years, part-time. And really, the first day one, I would say, was almost 9 years ago when we got started, Tyler and I. And so that's kind of the background of, how we got started. And I'm just really excited to be here and share the energy with all your listeners, Carmen.
Thank you. Thanks for that backstory. You inspire me so much every single day with everything that you do in your career and in your everyday life. You've I always tell when I'm explaining you to somebody, I explain first the relationship, the closeness that we have, and then when I'm explaining you as a person, I'm like, if you think that I'm into personal development, like, you should meet my brother. He is, and then I usually end up telling them about your 75 hard. So that's kind of what one of the themes of that's kind of the main theme of our topic today, is around, I want to interview you on your process through 75 hard. It's a mental toughness challenge. And so you can explain what that is. And also, it's not just about the challenge, but what did that challenge do for you, and um, what did you learn about yourself through the last few years that you've been doing it? You can tell us about that, but one first things first, you want to explain what it is
Yeah,
that is, and when did you start?
totally. For sure. So 75 hard is exactly what you said. It's a mental toughness challenge. There's a lot of hype around it, around social media and the impacts that it does changing people's lives. And there's a little bit of a miscommunication when people hear mental toughness challenge versus like a health program or a special diet, or I'm just going to do really well in the gym, right? So the reason that this is a mental toughness challenge, not just an exercise diet, is because again, it's really working on not just your fitness, not just following a diet. So I guess before I kind of dive in, I'll just talk a bit about what the requirements are each day for those 75 days, which you can go and listen to, which is on a podcast by Andy Frisella. I've been following him personally since 2018. And I think by 2019, I had actually done my first completion of 75 hard. So he's got his podcast. You can Google search 75 Hard Podcast, plug in the link there if you want to listen to it and you find that it's going to be beneficial for you. So for the first 75 days, you're required to do a certain amount of tasks per day that you complete each day and move to the next. And so if you miss one of those tasks, you start back at day one, whether you're at day 6, day 20, day 58. I've restarted quite a few times past the 50-day mark. And the thing that has been a big impact on actually restarting from day one is like, there's nobody here that's blowing the whistle when I'm offside. There's nobody here to say, hey, your goal doesn't count because, I ate something wrong on my diet, or I finished my gym workout 38 minutes instead of 45 minutes. And so that's why this is a mental toughness program, is because there's nobody here but yourself to say, hey, I'm doing this the way that I should be doing it versus actually completing it in its entirety. So I think that's really one of the most impactful things for me personally in my experience of doing 75 hard is how well do I honor my own word to myself, right? Because at the end of the day, there's nobody here that, Carmen's not going to say, hey, how's 75 hard doing? And I can just say, yep, I'm doing great. When really yesterday I ate a pizza and I'm still doing the diet as an example, right? So that's one of the biggest things that I think gets overlooked as well is like, hey, this is about me and I'm the one that gets to choose if I'm going to go through this successfully or if I'm going to go through this just kind of breezing through it and hoping for the best and just kind of half-assing it. So the requirements for the 75 days are 2 workouts for 45 minutes. 1 outdoors is required. They could be both outdoors, but they both cannot be indoors. It has to be one at least outdoors for 45 minutes. Number 2 is drinking a gallon of water, 4 liters of water each day, 10 pages of a business or entrepreneurial book. So basically anything nonfiction that is self-development style, taking a progress photo, and following a diet with no alcohol or cheat meals. So those are the baseline requirements for the first 75 days. And so with those requirements, I personally have the app because down the road when I didn't have the app in my first beginning stages, I forgot my photo twice. And one of them was on day like 30. The other one was on day like 45, where literally I'd done 2 workouts. I drank all my water. I did my reading. I didn't eat any crappy food. I stayed on my diet. I didn't drink any alcohol. And I went to sleep and I didn't take my photo. And the first time that happened, I actually went and continued the day that was supposed to be next, whether it was 54 or 55 or whatever. And for 2 more days, I actually continued the challenge, even though I didn't take my photo. Because to me personally, in my mind at the time, was like, shit, who cares about a photo? I'll just take 2 photos today. I know that my body looks good, so like I don't need to take a photo. And it's funny because personally, that was my mindset. My mindset was like, hey, I'm in good shape. I know I look good. Why does this photo need to happen? And then I started like, I had this epiphany where I was like, you know, what are other things in my life that are quote unquote, I know I can complete, but I don't because I feel that I know how to do it, or I know that taking a photo for me may not be that impactful, but for somebody that's maybe doing this challenge also for the aspect of getting in shape, maybe they're a little bit overweight or they want to get in shape for a marathon, like when you take that photo every day, you don't have to share it, you don't have to post it on Facebook and let the whole world see your progress, but it's really just for you. And so
Mhm.
after those 3 days, when I noticed that I had an epiphany, I said, what are other things in my life that I'm doing or that I think that I know, like I know I can do this, which is like example, I know I can take a photo. It's the easiest thing in the challenge in my mind. It made at the time, it was actually the hardest thing for me, which was to remember to take a photo. And that was something I learned about myself. And you'll kind of pick up nuggets as you go through this challenge of what, your blind sides are. Because at the end of the day, everyone has blind sides. We're humans, right? Like we make mistakes and that's okay. And the difference is for me, I used to brush off those mistakes that I knew I could do because I knew how to do it.
Mhm.
But just because I know how to do it doesn't mean that I'm actually using my integrity and saying, hey, I should be actually taking this photo and starting over. And so a couple of days later, I restarted. That was a really challenging one for me. There's been a few other things around diet and eating healthy. And a big thing for me, and as you know, Carmen, is I was the candy man growing up as a kid. I loved candy. I would save all my money and I would buy a $5 bag of 5-cent candies that would last me 2 or 3 days, and I would just snack on them. And so I think there's so many different areas of this challenge that are going to be a lot easier for some and a lot more challenging for others. And so I think that for any person that decides to go through 75 hard, is like when you figure out which one that is, whether it's drinking water or doing your outdoor workout, or following a diet or no alcohol, right? Like that's could be a big one for people as well, like not drinking a beer or having a glass of wine with dinner for 75 days. So whichever part of the challenge is going to be the hardest for you, that you think you can kind of squeak past and do this and only have one glass of wine, or only eat pizza on one day a week. It's like, no, like that's the whole purpose of this, is to like say and learn about what it is that is holding you back in your life. And that can be a bit extreme, but also that's why I did it, right? Is I want to strive, I want to do better. I know that I personally am a very healthy person. Our family, with mom being a chef and us eating healthy, has been a very big impact for us. And so the diet wasn't a huge thing, but I'm using that as an example for anyone that may be struggling with eating too much junk food or too much fast food, or even maybe not even eating enough, right? Maybe some people for this challenge is actually getting on a nutritious, healthy diet where you're eating 3 meals a day instead of, a couple of snacks and one dinner, right? And maybe putting on size, right? So each person will have their own sort of dynamic of what the impact of this challenge will do. And for me personally, there was the list goes on for the things that I learned, but those are kind of the biggest nuggets.
Wow. That's incredible. It's been such a honor for me to have witnessed your journey this entire time,
Yeah,
to have seen you grow from the beginning and to see who you are now is is an incredible change for the better. Like you were already an incredible person before, but your habits now are just they've changed your life completely. And it makes me think of the compound effect. I don't know if you ever read that book, but the compound effect, which is the things you do every single day, the small decisions you make every single day. They seem like nothing, like the photo seems like nothing, but it
yeah,
adds up and adds up. And throughout your life, it is exponential differences. And the examples that this guy, I can't remember who the book is by, but I can link it later. Uh, the examples that he gives, he gives an example around money, um, which is a very simple way of understanding this because of how money can compound over time and make or break
totally.
your financial success in life. And then it's things like drinking, like having one beer a day. How much well, it's one beer a day, no problem. Adding that up throughout your life is exponential difference. So, uh, that I think has been, you are a beautiful example of what the compound effect can do for you
Totally.
and yeah,
Yeah, and
and
I
go ahead.
really would love to touch more on that because you said something really profound there, which is like one beer a day, right? Not a big deal, right? One beer a day. What's wrong with that, right? We've all been there, had a beer a day, for a week, that's 7 beers. Times that by 365 days, damn, that's a lot of beer. But if it's just one beer when I get home from work, maybe two. If it's two instead of one, now you're doubling, right? So it's like, what are those things that are, again, like you said, compounding over time, right? And whether that's financially and you're investing in that compounds, whether you're drinking a beer every day and that compounds, whether you brush your teeth. Like we all know that it's just natural that when I want to go to bed, I brush my teeth. But if I just didn't brush my teeth before bed, by the time I'm 20, 30, 40 years old, I'm not going to have any teeth left, right? They're going to be rotten. They're going to be yellow. They're going to be gross, right? And so it's like something that literally takes 2 minutes to brush my teeth allows me to have a clean smile. And so again, that really is impactful around 75 hard is like, for me, the easiest thing in that challenge was taking the photo. And I restarted twice because of that. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is easy. I don't, it's not really that hard. It's an easy thing to do. But again, I was 50 days in and did everything else except for the photo and had to restart. And that to some people might seem extreme, right? And to me, the first 2 days, I was like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. And then I was like, hey, like, I'm not doing this challenge for anyone else. I'm doing this challenge for me. And if I'm going to cheat myself around the easiest thing in this challenge, what other easy things in my life am I going to cheat myself on, right?
Yeah, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right?
Totally. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, you really understand that too, because this is a bit of a sidebar, but Hugh and I have both done the next level leadership training. Same with our other brother, Tyler. Tyler got Hugh into it. Hugh and Tyler both got me into it. And something I'd say the biggest thing, I mean, everybody takes something so different from that course. And I've talked about it on the podcast for those of you who have heard those episodes. But a huge thing that I think is universal for that course that everybody is going to experience no matter what is that how you do one thing is how you do everything. How this shows up, well, how you show up in this course is how you show up in life. And I think I would assume that in this 75 hard, how you show up there is how you show up in life. And that makes me remember that that makes me think there's no wrong way to do this 75 hard. I'd say doing it and having the mini failures and the side tracks and having to restart
Mm,
is more impactful than if you were to do it all the way through, because
mm,
you'd have a lot to be proud of if you did it all the way through. Like that would be really impressive.
yeah.
But I think the more growth comes from the failures, more growth comes from the things that are holding you back and the things um that are
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So
Totally. And I think one thing that really lands for me when you say that is like, and Andy talks about this in his podcast, and he says, anyone that does 75 hard for the full 75 days on the first try, most likely is not doing that challenge correctly. And that's because what you just said, Carmen, which was we learn the most from our mistakes. And it's not until somebody totally crashes and totals their car do they stop being a reckless driver or a family member passes away from driving recklessly. But if you have a small fender bender and, oh, I scraped my car and this and that, it's like that doesn't really stop you from having a dramatic shift in your life. And that is something that I've learned about 75 hard and similarly like in BBA is that when we make a drastic change in our lives, there's going to be a massive amount of impact, but also a massive amount of discomfort, right? Like it was really freaking uncomfortable for me to start over and tell people that I started over because I forgot my photo, which is the easiest thing that anyone would see in this challenge is the easiest thing to do. And so, like for me personally, as a man, that bites your ego because you're like, shit, I just, I've restarted, and it was literally the easiest thing, in my opinion, that you could do in the daily tasks of 75 hard. And so I think, you really hit the hammer on the head there, which is like about the actionable steps, but also like be okay with making mistakes, be okay with having failures. Because when you make those big failures, those drastic impacts in your life where you're like against the wall and you've got no other option, that's where you learn to have the persistence and have the grit and the fortitude to power through those challenges.
100%. And I think I talked about, might have even been my last episode or 2 weeks ago or something. I made a whole episode on that about how I'm excited to fail. I'm
Yeah,
excited for those breakdowns because the breakdown equals the breakthrough. It's really hard to have the breakthrough without the breakdown. Not
totally.
impossible, but so I'm actually excited for that. And it's easier said than done. It's easier to say
Oh,
this now
totally.
than it is when
Yeah.
it's actually happening. But to be self-aware and to be able to notice when you're in the breakdown and through practice and thanks to, having such amazing parents, I feel like it's easier for us to be able to, in that breakdown, see the beauty of it and say, like
Yeah.
honestly, like sometimes I even thanks God, like thanks for this breakdown. Thanks for
Yeah.
thanks for having me miss my flight because that saved me from what it was, from what I wasn't meant to do at that time. Or thank you for teaching me this lesson through this breakdown. And I was actually able to do
Totally.
that in the moment. And I think you're able to do that as well.
Totally. And something that, I've been really having pop into my brain a lot, and I'll use you as an example of missing your flight. Your life completely changed because you missed your flight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that's good or bad, to me personally, there is no good or bad. It just is, right? And what happened is what happened. And your life went this direction when you could have went this direction, and both would have had a completely different outcome for you. Whether that might have been, your job or this and that, or maybe the plane crashes and or you lose your luggage, right? So, there's power in us as humans having that faith and trusting ourselves and knowing that, what, I'm human, I'm going to make a mistake. How can I use that mistake to avoid that mistake in the future? And more powerfully, how can I, share that experience with others so that they don't make the same mistakes, right? And there's a very cliche saying that's out there is like, you learn the most from your mistakes, but they don't have to be your own. And so that's why reading is very important. I think podcasts are extremely important. And also just like trusting that process is extremely important because, if you're in a team environment and let's say me and you, Carmen, we're on the same goal, we want the same target, we're going after this thing, and we're both in alignment and we're working together as like business partners. If you and I are working together, and let's say we've got two other people, we're all going the same direction and you make that mistake of missing your flight, the three of us that are on your team are going to learn that that mistake doesn't work. There's a mistake there that we learned from your actions, which then also taught us something. And I think that's very valuable what you do in your podcast as well is like you talk about the realness that's going on in your life that may not have been the best scenario, but at the end of the day, you learn the most from it. And so that environment of being in group settings, you're going to get to that end result quicker because if I'm by myself and I'm going to that goal and I make that mistake, I don't make that same mistake again. But the mistake that you have made that I haven't yet, I haven't seen you make that mistake, so I don't know it's a mistake or not, right? And so that team dynamic and that growth, I think, is an impactful scenario to do and to go into when you're in alignment with other people around you in your environment. And again, another cliche saying is like, who you spend the most time with. If you hang around four winners, you're going to be the fifth, right? And if
Mm-hmm.
you hang out around with four losers that go to the bar every Friday and Saturday and weekdays, you're that same loser, right? And so you got to choose your environment carefully as well. And I think that hopefully is helpful for anyone else out there because I've gone through that experience as well. Going up in high school, I hung around the wrong group of people, and that was my choice. And was that a mistake? Personally, no. At the time, maybe. That perspective I had, maybe. But now I'm like, you know what? I'm glad that I fucked that up. I'm glad that I made that mistake because now here I am at almost 26 years old, knowing that that doesn't work anymore, right? The world does not operate that way. And things are not going to be good outcomes from doing that, right? Whether that's partying, whether that's personal life, business, relationships, can happen in any scenario, right? And so that environment is extremely impactful. And I think that the best benefit around that is learn from other people's mistakes. Continue to listen to Carmen's podcast and listen to other people's podcasts. Go check out Andy Frisella if you like, fitness and mental toughness. Like there's an environment around personal development in the world that other people that just totally get it. And then you're like, you know what? And to be frank with all your listeners, Carmen, not everyone's going to be liking Andy Frisella. He's very raw. He's very real. He's not afraid to swear. He's not afraid to just call you out and tell you how he sees it. And for some people, that is a little bit extreme. So just warning all of your listeners out there right now, you may not like him. So go there, be open minded, be okay to just listen out for a full couple episodes. And if it's not for you, that's okay, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Find somebody that is in alignment with you. And for me, as soon as I heard him back in 2018, I've been listening to like 85% of all of his episodes and his podcast. And so I've got a lot of impact from that. And some of the episodes that he does, which is called like CTI, where he cruises the internet and talks about these woke, headlines online and stuff. I'm not a politics person. I'm not very interested in that kind of stuff. So I don't actually really listen to those episodes. And that's okay because it's just not for me. But there's other people that literally only listen to those episodes. And so that dynamic is going to be different for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for that. I actually haven't listened to his podcast, and I'm gonna start listening to it. I have the summary from you, and I have it through the
Yeah.
I have it through the lens of your eyes, which I'd be interesting to see how do I interpret it from my own. We are very similar people, but we're not the same. And yeah, like you said, I'm a woman, you're a man. There's a totally different perspective on life there, and
Yeah.
so that's a really interesting. And I really love that you mentioned that, and it's really interesting because I was just talking about this a lot yesterday with my friend, is that there is no really good or bad. There's no right or wrong. Like we were mentioning, there's no wrong way to do this course. However you do it is the right way. And when you think about any habits or anything in life, really, if you want to get huge on this, is there really is no good or bad. There's only what our perception of it is. Like, I perceive something as good or bad, and you may perceive that same thing as the opposite. And there's no way to say whether something is good or bad. And so it was funny. I was in this conversation yesterday. We were talking for a long, long time, like hours, about all these different things and everything. And I started to label things as, oh, but that's a perception. That's a perception.
Totally.
To him and to myself. Like, it was really interesting to and I had never really done that. Like, I've always, or not always, over the last, say, year or two, I started reading like Deepak Chopra stuff, listening to his podcast, and I think he's the biggest one who's taught me that the good or bad doesn't actually exist. It's all in a perception. So when you're able to neutrally look at things, and this kind of leads with feedback, when you're able to neutrally give feedback that some people might consider good or bad, it's not, it's all neutral. And so looking at things with that neutral lens, it helps you, it just really helps you in life, and it helps you with this journey of personal development in every single aspect.
Totally. And I wanted to touch on what you just said there, which is like looking at things from a neutral perspective. Now, for anyone that's listening, this is not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to do what Carmen is saying. I personally struggle with that all the time. But the fact that you're aware of it and you're listening to hearing this and you have an open mind to knowing more about it already puts you ahead of the rest of the world around being in that position where I get to choose my perception, right? Like if I love pineapple, but Carmen's allergic to pineapple, her perception is pineapple is not good. I could eat it and get an allergic reaction and die at the worst case extreme. And for me, pineapple's like my favorite fruit. And so like that is the perception, right? And so when you can look at things from a neutral point, it is not an easy thing to do. And that's what I was wanting to, point out is like that perception mentality is always a working habit. You can't just be a person that is always neutral and then one day you're just like this perfect human glowing god, right? Like the world just doesn't work that way. And for me personally, in my experience, I know when sometimes my ego gets in the way and I'm like, that person is not a good person to hang around. But again, that's just my perception, right? The people that love to party and get wasted might think that person is the best person in the world because they're partying and everyone knows them. They're in a good social environment. I personally am just using that as an example. And that, the reason I'm bringing this up, Carmen, and to your listeners is that this is not an easy thing to do. It's not easy for me. I'm sure it's not easy for Carmen. And the fact that your listeners are here being open-minded and just learning about it already puts people ahead of the game because most people aren't taught that there is a right or wrong. It's like you go to school, and if you get the wrong answer, you fail. And you're now looked at a lower category of a person based on how you do your math equation. Now, the reason I use that as an example is us being homeschooled. Like, we were not taught that way. And if you put me in front of an altitude test and put someone right beside me the same age as me, our results are going to be completely different. Now, if I fail and he passes, does that mean that this person is going to be successful and I'm not? The world teaches us, yeah, most likely. But again, it's like, okay, well, why don't we change that around? Why don't you ask me about real estate? Let's talk houses. Let's talk relationships. Let's talk money. Let's talk finances. You put that in front of me and you put that beside somebody else, and maybe the roles are reversed. Then, am I right and he's wrong now? Like, no, to be honest, like I would treat that person the way I want them to treat me, right? And so that's a mentality that I've learned to, grow into as well. Is like treating everybody the way that you would want to be treated. And until you give me a reason not to treat you with respect, then I'm going to treat you with respect and the way I want you to treat me. And so unless you've given me a reason and you've shown that you don't deserve that, then I'm going to give it to you. And again, that's also not an easy thing to do because, maybe past traumas or past experiences with relationships and partners or family, that's our perception of how everyone else is. Again, that's a perception, right? And so I think that there's a lot that, really ties into this category of the perception of right and wrong or just neutral. And what I'm getting at is it's not easy at the end of the day. It's really not easy. And so um, things that I can recommend that have worked for me around this mentality, again, is personal development courses, training, right? The Sterling Weekend, Boston Breakthrough, Zoom, trainings, seminars, books. Again, that environment of the people that you're surrounding yourself with. If you're hanging around with people that are always saying no to everything because they don't want to, they're skeptical. It's like you're going to be a skeptical person. That's just who it is, right? And that's just really one thing I wanted to nail down, which is like this is not an easy path to take. And again, who's to say that it's easy or hard, right? Like that's another perception like that I just literally used right now, right? And we're talking about. And so it's like, oh damn. Okay, so like where can I shift into this, opportunity of, coming into a neutral perspective and, just going with my gut feeling because we're humans, we're wired to survive. And when we want to survive, we want to do the least confrontational thing possible, which is like not public speaking, not introducing ourselves, not asking for the sale, not door knocking, not cold calling. Like, those are the examples that have been challenges for me in business. But whether it's approaching businesses to paint murals or things like that, right? Like starting a podcast, like those things are not easy, but it's like, am I going to be right or wrong? Or am I just going to be me? Am I Hugh MacLeod? Am I Carmen? Like, who am I? And that's the one thing that ties into 75 Hard is I learned about who I am and what's valuable to me. But also on top of that, I learned what I think is valuable, that because of me putting value on it, I actually give myself less credit for it. So as an example of what I mean by that is this photo, right? Like that to me was the easiest thing to do. And I still say it is. And it's like, okay, if that's the easiest thing to do, how did you restart twice from doing the easiest thing? And it's like, okay, well, in my mind, this is what I learned in that course as well is like when I know I can do something, if I'm trying something brand new I've never done, I'm literally like balls to the walls, 110%. When I do something I already kind of know what to do, or I'm already like confident in myself, I'm like, oh, I know how to do this. That'll be down. That'll be down. Whereas like I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to fuck this up. And then I just like
Mm-hmm.
go, right? There's no time to think. It's just go, right? And so that's definitely an ongoing process all the time. And so if I can give one piece of advice that works for me is just keep getting around those people that think that way, that operate that way. And, again, social media is a big consumer of everyone's lives, right? So it's like, okay, what am I watching before bed? Am I watching somebody that's throwing water balloons at strangers for no reason and just laughing? Or am I listening to like podcasts like Carmen's and like Andy Frisella and people that are actually teaching me things to take out into the real world? So I think that there's always this revolving door of more to do. And, there's a fine line between not getting overwhelmed and being able to take action as well, because at the end of the day, there's always more to do. So that in mind as well, that comes up is, you know, sometimes you need to take a step back. Hey, be like, hey man, like if you're driving down the highway 110 miles an hour, you blow your tire out, like you've got to literally come to a complete 0 kilometer stop. You could keep going, but then your car is going to be clunking, your tire is going to be making noise, you're scratching your rim, and your car is going to break down eventually because you didn't stop, take a break, pull over to the side of the road, put your four ways on, change your tire that maybe takes 30, 40 minutes to do if you're by yourself, and then get back on the highway, right? Like those initial stops to get gas. It's important in our lives as humans, right? Like we need that connection. We need to have, this recharge, right? This refueling of energy because, especially you, Carmen, no, especially for me personally, like we're a big energy sourced family. And so those energy sources are very important as humans to surround ourselves with energy that is powerful and impactful and not draining and negative.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%, 100%. I really, that's a good segue because I really wanted to, you told me about what has changed for you through 75 hard.
Yeah,
And I'm really curious I want to get a little bit deeper into that. Like
sure.
specifically, what is it that you think would be the biggest change that you see in yourself, out of everything that has happened over the last few years?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Carmen. And thing I love about great questions is you can ask the exact same question to two different people and get two completely different results, but it's the same question, right? And so that kind of ties into this like perspective of neutral and right and wrong, right? So it's a good question, and I think the biggest impact that it taught me through 75 hard is, oh my gosh, I mean, there's so many that are popping into my brain right now, but I think like the biggest impact it made on my life. Wow. I think the biggest thing really is about my respect for myself, to be completely honest. I had an experience prior up until recently that, halfway through basically learning about this in BBA course as well, but coming from 75 hard that I didn't really tap into as much as I know now is like how much I would be negative to myself, would be hard on myself, right? And I think that the 75 hard really taught me about the respect that I'm earning for me, right? I'm not doing 75 hard for anyone
Oh, sorry, 1 second.
else, right? If I was, I would be not doing this for anyone else. What's that?
Oh, no, sorry. It was cutting out for a minute, but you're good now.
No worries.
You got it.
Yeah, so I think like the biggest impact there, Carmen, is really like the respect that I hold for myself. When I drink a gallon of water every day and I do two workouts and I'm outside and it's snowing, and you know what? Did I run? No, because I'm going to hurt myself. But I'm outside. I'm working out. Like I'm going for a walk. Some days I'm running really, really hard, and some days I just go for a walk. Right. So that is up to my discretion. Another thing around restarting from a photo, like that built confidence in who I am as a human being, because nobody would have known if I just continued the challenge and finished at day 55 to 75 or restarted. Either option, no one would know the difference except for me. And so that allowed me to be like, holy shit, Hugh, you have earned your own self respect. Because growing up as a kid, personally, I didn't respect myself. I didn't really respect myself. I didn't think much of myself. I didn't think I was a good person. I wouldn't say I was a bad person. And I wasn't like, like semi depressed or anything. But, there's definitely times where you go in this rabbit hole of like, you're not a good person. And that's just for me, person. And so the thing I learned about 75 hard and the thing that impacted me the most is like, hey, you know what? Did I close a transaction? Did I close a deal today? No. And I'd be like, shit, I didn't make any money. I work on commission. So if I don't make a sale, I don't, make money. And so there's certain things that would come into my life and these little monkeys that would creep in and say, hey, Hugh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And it's like, okay, whoa, 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 Hugh, like just take a step back for a second. Let's pull off to the side of that road and change that tire. Okay, yeah, your tire's flat. Maybe you didn't close a deal, but You did your workout. You followed a diet. You didn't drink any alcohol. You did two workouts, one outside, right? You took your photo. You ate healthy. And that allowed that compounding effect, like you said, Carmen, to build up over time. And when that starts to build up, you start to empower yourself because when those monkeys come in, which you and I both know, they happen probably almost every day. Maybe not every day, but maybe once a week or once a month. Or as maybe you're higher up in the business spectrum and maybe it's once a year that you have an off day. But everyone has them. And the thing is for me, it was happening every day, all the time. Whereas when I started challenging myself and putting myself in awkward positions to, do better and learn about, that growth for myself was like, hey, you know what, Hugh? You did what you said you were going to do. And that's okay. If you didn't do this and you didn't get what you wanted, you didn't make a sale or you didn't ask that girl for her phone number, but it's like, you know what, dude, like I'm working on myself. And, that importance of me keeping my word to myself is what's going to drive me again tomorrow. It's going to allow me to wake up and go to the gym in the morning. It's going to allow me to eat healthy again tomorrow because I didn't eat any candy tonight. And so it's like, there's this good saying, and I'm probably not saying it correctly or the way that it was or the way I heard it, but it was something along the lines of um the way that again that perspective you were talking about, which is like, how can I be better than I was yesterday? Because I know that in 20 years from now, I want to be a millionaire, I want to drive fast cars, I want to have a great family, I want to have a fantastic wife and kids, and this and that and this and that. And it's like this never ending like vision of success. But it's like, okay, well, I can't just get there today, right? Like today, I'm not just gonna like get $1 million on my lap, right? And some people do get that. Some people win, the lottery or whatever. But those skills, those mistakes, like you mentioned earlier, Carmen, are what allow us to learn those skills and those tools to then use that wealth, use that creativity, use that mindset to not only help myself, but help others, right? Like if I won $1 million and I didn't have a family or didn't have kids or I didn't have this mentality, I'd probably go party for the next 6 weeks in Whistler and throw all my money at the casino or whatever, right? Like I'm just using that as an example, but there's so many things that I learned from this challenge, Carmen, but I think that is the biggest impact around how I treat myself. Because again, whether it's 75 hard or it's not drinking or it's not smoking weed or it's maybe just not drinking during the week, right? Like it's a compounding effect that I learned over time of doing this challenge that when I would beat the challenge and be successful at completing my tasks, I would wake up the next day and be like, oh, okay, well, for a prime example, today is only day 3 for me. I started on January 2nd and I've already restarted twice. And tomorrow's day 4. But I know that the first 2 days were really hard for me. I didn't want to work out. I did my first workout outdoors at like 4 p.m. yesterday and did my second workout at like 10 o'clock. And it was crazy. But it's like, but today I'm not feeling that way. Today I went and did my workout at 9 a.m. I've already done my second workout before this podcast episode. And it's like, okay, but yesterday I did my workouts in the evening. So it's like, how can I be better than I was yesterday? And because, there's a good saying of like, if I can improve 1% every day, by the end of the year, I've increased my value to me as a person and how I choose to perceive myself. If I do 1% every day, by the end of the year, that's 365% increase in value that I give myself, let alone for 75 days, right? That's just 1% of one thing. Now, if you hit, all of these other things that you're adding on 2 workouts, water, reading, like before doing 75 hard, I have never in my entire life read a book from start to finish in its entirety until I did 75 hard. Ever. Even when we went to school, like we were homeschooled, and then I went to high school in 10, 11, 12. Even in high school, I was like bullshitting, copying their notes, this and that. And I never actually read a book in its entirety until I did 75 hard. And it's like, wow, that is super impactful for me. That may not be for someone that's a book nerd that loves books. That's okay. That's great. I'm like, books are amazing. I freaking love books. But do I like sitting down for reading 10 pages? for me, I still don't like it because my reading is a little bit slower. So it takes me about 30 minutes, 25 minutes, depending on the book, to read 10 pages that someone could read in like maybe 10 minutes, right? So there's a lot of dynamics that are going to be different for everyone in this challenge. And that's what I like the most about it, right? Is you can go and look up the hashtag of 75 hard, and there's going to be a wide spectrum of people that the most impactful thing for them is they went from 280 pounds to 230 pounds, right? And that for them is the biggest impact, which is fantastic. And does this challenge help you lose weight? Yes. But is that the primary focus of it? No, not at all. And that's the thing I like most about it is it gives you the opportunity to figure out what's in your life that you want to work on and that your blind sides aren't letting you see, right? Like you're going through your life like this, and I can't see what color the walls are unless I look at the screen. Unless I do this. Now I can see that they're blue. But if I do this and I couldn't see myself on the camera, I wouldn't know what color they are, right? Because I'm just going. And that's part of life is like we're designed in an environment in the world to do this and just to, go.
Mhm.
So that's part of what I think is really impactful about this challenge.
Yeah, wow. Uh, I want to also bring up the the part when you're talking about, because there's a line between the mental toughness, the holding yourself accountable, and then
Mm,
there's that line of when do I be strict with myself and call myself out on my shit, and still when I mess up, I'm going to be kind to myself. And I know that you've
totally.
recently had a little bit of a breakthrough around that. Well, we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what Tyler, our other brother, texted you, so as just a phrase. Do you
Oh,
remember what it was?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just
That's
how that, if you want to talk about that, because I think that that's something that people are going to have a lot of struggles with, is first being able to be hard on yourself. And I think that once you get that aspect down, which is what you had that down, then you started getting hard on yourself when there are times where you also need to just accept that I'm not perfect. I'm 26.
totally.
I'm going to make mistakes, and it's not always a mistake. So you could talk a little more about
Totally.
that if you want.
Totally. Yeah, no, that was a very profound moment for me. And what our brother Tyler said to me was, we were texting and I can't remember what we were texting about, but we were texting about some things that I was regretting. I was being hard on myself for. I was continuing to drive when I had a flat tire, to say the least. And Tyler texts me and says, "Oh wow, my brother's human."
He
And
says
instantly,
Hugh is human, right?
yeah, he said,
Yeah.
"My brother Hugh is human." Hugh
Mhm.
is human, something like that. And Tyler playing jokes with my name and all that stuff. Story of my life. Um, that for me, like instantly, as soon as I saw that text, I went from like down here to like way up here past the spectrum. And at the end of the day, like that to Tyler was just him kind of not really giving me a hard time, but kind of just like, hey, Hugh, get your ass in gear here. And I think that is a thing that is a part of a blind side as being a human. Like all it took for Tyler was to just crack a little joke at me and say, "Oh, Hugh's a human now. Like, oh, he's not this superhero." And it's like, you know what? You're right. I fucked up, and you know what? That's okay. And for me personally, I took it very hard until I saw that text, and then I was like, my whole mentality changed. Like it literally did a full like 180 to the other side of the spectrum, where I was on this side saying, Hugh, you're not doing what you should be doing. You know you can do better. You know you've done this in the past. You're capable of it. Why aren't you doing it? Blah 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 blah. Vicious cycle. Whereas like on the other side, Tyler's like, hey, my brother's a human. Like, dude, good job, man. Fuck it up again. You know what I mean? And it's like, holy. So that is a big thing around the dynamic of your environment as well. And I know I'm touching on this a few times, and I want to because that's very important. Like I think part of your success, Carmen, and part of my success, and part of Tyler's success is the fact that the three of us have such a good quality relationship that we surround each other. Even though you're halfway across the world, we still spend an hour or two on the phone having conversations, whether it's I need support from you or you need support from me. We both have a different perspective and a different mentality, but again, at the end of the day, we're going towards the same end goal around, which I hope a lot of the people of your listeners are too, which is like, at the end of the day, like we want to strive for that greatness. We want to strive for being a better person and making impacts on other people's lives around us. And how can we, bring good into this world? And I think that that is something that can really shine when you're around those similar types of people, because all it took was for my brother. And probably if you asked him the same question, he probably wouldn't even remember what the text was, because to him, he was just kind of joking around and joshing me, right? And to me, it was very impactful because before I saw that text, I thought I wasn't human. I thought I was this superhero. I'm crushing 75 hard. I'm killing my workouts. I'm getting in shape. I'm getting a six pack. I'm eating healthy. I'm gaining weight. I'm gaining muscle. And I'm reading all these books and I'm doing business. And then on the other side, it's like, now because I'm not doing that, again, this is like that good versus bad, which is like, okay, if I'm not doing what that is, that thing, whatever it is for you, it's like, oh, well, you know what? I know I can do it. I'm not doing it. Well, I'm a human. So I can either choose to stay where I'm at, or I can choose to accept that that's the case. And what can I do moving forward to create a new environment for myself? And that's really, it's all a mental game. It's all about creating that environment, and that mentality is going to be the difference between success and not success. Is really your choice. You get to choose if you're a successful person. I don't get to choose if you're a successful person. Your parents don't get to choose if you're a successful person. You get to choose that. And I chose in that day before that text that I was not a happy, successful person. And all it took was my brother to say, hey, dude, you're a human. Get over it. And I was like, oh, shit. You know what? I make mistakes. I miss my diets. I like to eat ice cream and candy. I like to go to parties. Even though I don't drink anymore, I still go to parties. In 1 month, it'll be a full year since I haven't drank, even when I was off 75 hard. And that's a whole nother can of worms as well to talk about. But I think that even though I can go in an environment of people drinking, I am still clear that I am not drinking. And that's okay for me. So that environment aspect I'm able to go into, but I'm very cautious. And it's not because I say anything about people or drinking, or like I don't look at other people that drink as like a lesser person or a negative thing. I just know for me that is not going to get me in my direction of my goal. And so I just choose not to drink. Am I going to never drink for the rest of my life? I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I know that yesterday I didn't drink. And if I'm going to be better than I was yesterday, then I won't be drinking today. And so that's again that perspective that I've been using a lot around how can I just be 1% better than yesterday, right? Can I read 11 pages of my book instead of 10 just for fun one day? Let's see what happens, right? Like, let's just drink an extra 2 glasses of water, right? Or let's do one extra push up on every set that I do. And did I still do my 45-minute workouts? Yes. But yesterday I did 48 push ups and today I did 49 push ups, right? And then tomorrow, hey, guess what? I went from 48 to 49 to 50. And now that 1% every day is going to get me up the ladder of starting down here and finishing up here. Now, the cool and interesting thing about, this dynamic of personal growth is that as soon as you get to here, there's going to be a new bar. There's always that next step. And if you get to the top, which I've done, I've gotten to the top. And in my opinion of what the top is around, let's say 75 hard, is I started eating ice cream, started eating candy. I only worked out once. I wasn't drinking as much water. And now with this huge leap to try and get back to that same spot. And other people in this world are going after your goals. You know what? I'm going to just tell you how it is. There's people out there that want to travel the world like Carmen, that want to sell houses like me, that want to have a good lifestyle, that want to have family, that want to have kids, that want to date a nice girl, that want to have a good man. Everyone wants that. And so the difference is am I going to let that person go after it? And am I going to stop myself from getting it? Or am I going to go after that? And am I going to grow towards getting my goals and growing to that success? Because as soon as I stop, I'm going to slowly get passed by the next person because they're going and I'm just staying neutral. So I'm actually going down, even though I'm just staying where I'm at, because the world's growing, technology, people are coming in and they want to take it. I'm going to tell you and everyone else of your listeners, someone is working right behind you to try and take it from you. And it's up to you to let them do it or not. And so that's something that I use for me personally. And it's a little bit of a perspective that is, it bites me in the butt, and I'm okay with that. Now, for some people, maybe that mentality doesn't work, but for me, that's why I like Andy Frisella. Is like, we as men personally, we need to be fighters. We need to be killers. We need to take action, and we need to be aggressive. Now, does that mean that you need to jump in someone's face and be like, "Give me your business"? It's like, no, dude, chill out, man. Like, relax. Like, we're still humans here. Like, I'm not saying go out and jump in front of someone's face and say, "Hey, buy a house for me." But like, at the end of the day, if I don't pick up that phone, someone else is, right? If I'm not going door knocking, someone else is, right? And so I use that as a driving gas in my gas tank, right? Like, I'm fueling my energy by knowing that other people want this too, and there's a reason why people want it, because there is this mentality, and there is this, you know, this lifestyle that everyone wants. But if everyone had it, it wouldn't be special, right? If everyone was a billionaire, it wouldn't matter to be a billionaire, because everyone had it. There'd be no special aspect of it. If everyone had a six pack, it wouldn't matter to go do crunches every day, because you just have a six pack. So what? I'll go eat pizza because I've already got a six pack, right? But if my workout every time I'm at the gym is I warm up with my core as my first 15 minutes, to just my warm up instead of doing cardio or treadmill or something like that. I just do core because, I don't want to do a full 30, 45-minute workout of just core. It's like, it sucks. Nobody likes doing the core. But if I just do it for 10 to 15 minutes at the start of every workout, for 365 workouts, I've done core every time, right? And so it's like this compounding effect of a little bit here, a little bit there, and it's like, it's just a snowball effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just made me think when you're talking about how, other people want these opportunities as well.
Yeah,
It just brought me a lot of gratitude. And I feel like I'm
totally.
I'm constantly living in a state of gratitude, and I know that you are as well.
Mm, yeah,
That's something that we have, I think, just completely innate in ourselves, that we've always had. We've always known how grateful and how lucky we are to have these opportunities of being
totally.
successful, of working on our minds, and having just this self-actualization, just having that level of self-actualization. Not everybody has even that opportunity. Some people, and I live in the Philippines, so I see it. Some people don't even have their
Totally.
basic needs met. And for me, I have my basic needs, and I have all of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs met, so that I'm able to now be at the self-actualization, that transcendent level of taking my life to the next level. And I'm so grateful. And I'm not going to waste that opportunity. And it's like, I want the best
Totally.
for other people as well. So I know that in your market it's a little different than mine. For what I'm doing, for my person, like from in my journey right now,
Yeah,
I want other people to come with me. And that's why I have this podcast. I want to share this with as many people. And I know that you do as well. Like, and so and if I was to just to allow my compounded bad habits to, or
mm,
for, I missed a podcast episode the other week. I haven't even acknowledged that. I missed my first podcast for the first time since I started it 10 months ago. I haven't acknowledged
mm.
it, and I broke my commitment.
Until
And
now.
there you go. And I forgive myself, and I'm not going to be hard on it. But if I was to allow that to continue to happen, then that would be me not acknowledging the
Mm,
opportunity that I have to make a difference in the world. And I would be essentially wasting this gift that I've been given.
totally. Yeah, and there's something really profound there as well. Is like, it kind of reminded me of what you were saying earlier, which is like, that aspect of like making a mistake and you learn from your mistakes, and they don't have to be your own. So it's like there's this never ending cycle of, being a human, of like connection and like supporting other people and watching them grow from your mistakes. Is like, it's like a vicious, like, not even vicious is not the word I'm looking for, but it's like it's, you're just drinking from the fountain of youth. Like when you're in a state of, for me, like when I'm at day 55, no, I would say a little bit before that. I would say probably like day 30 to 50 is when I'm like at my peak. My workouts are great. I'm waking up before my alarm. I'm slamming all my water before it's even lunchtime. And it's like that impact creates an environment that other people are drawn to, right? And so, Carmen, when you're out traveling the world and you're, changing people's lives, whatever field anyone's in, there's this growth that is like no other when you have that growth, not just for yourself, but for other people. And so when you can give that growth and see that happen with somebody else, it's literally like drinking from the fountain of youth. Like it just gives you more energy and more fire and more drive to continue. And you say, hey, wow, I did this thing. And this person just changed their entire life for the better because of it. What else can I do? What's the next thing I can do that can change someone else's life? Right. And it just fills you with this fulfillment and this passion to drive to the next goal and the next step, and whatever area of fitness or healthy eating or alcohol, it really compounds. Like I'll use alcohol as an example. When I go out to parties and someone offers me a drink and I say no, they say, come on, just have it. I say, I don't drink anymore. Like, and they're like, well, what, just one drink. And I said, in 1 month it'll be a year. And then they're like, oh shit, like this person's not just like taking a cleanse, you know what I mean? And there was one time I was at a party and this person came up to me. I've never met him in my life. Don't know what his name is, never seen his face. I don't know if he's seen me on social media or where he found this out, but he comes right up to me on the blue. Never seen this guy in my life. And he comes up and shakes my hand. He says, I just want to say thank you. And I was like, um, for what? Like, you're welcome, I guess. And he's like, I grew up with alcoholic parents and my mom actually died from drinking. And I still drink, but I heard that you don't drink. And I don't know you and you don't really know me, but I just want to say thank you, man, because that's not an easy thing for anyone to do. And I still haven't even been able to do it. So like when I heard that from someone I've never even met in my entire life, literally it just came up to me and said, hey, you're literally giving me confidence around not drinking at parties. And from my personal experience, like I didn't realize that me not drinking was also having a benefit on people around me. And so I had never met this guy. And so it's like that literally filled up my tank more to continue to not drink because somebody I've never met in my entire life was getting a value out of me choosing not to drink at this party. And so that was just, a good example that came into my mind around what you said, Carmen, which is like the fulfillment that you gain by helping others literally just is a revolving cycle of energy. And the more that you can help others, the more it's going to help yourself to allow you to help others again and again. And it's just like this hamster wheel of greatness. And when you can hop on the hamster wheel of greatness, eventually you're going to have either an overspin of speed because you're so excited and you're going to fall off. Like that's just natural. Or you're going to have it and you're going to keep speeding and speeding and speeding. And eventually you're gonna run out of energy. You're not gonna drink any water, or you're gonna lose your appetite. Like that wheel again will slow down, and that's where this perspective that you and I talked about, Carmen, that I think is super valuable and is a challenge for me every single day, which is like knowing when it's okay to pull over, change my flat tire, put some gas in my gas tank, and then jump back on the highway. Right? Maybe I got to go through the countryside and drive 60 instead of 100, and it takes an extra hour to get there. But as long as my GPS knows where I'm going and I know where I'm going and the path I'm on is in the right direction, if it takes me 2 years to get there or it takes me 10 years to get there, I would rather still get there than just like put a blindfold on and drive on the highway. I'm going to be dead in like less than 10 minutes, right? I'm going to crash into oncoming traffic or hit a meridian or miss my exit, right? So I think that's super impactful, Carmen.
Wow. I got major goosebumps when you were telling me that story about the guy that came up to you. That's incredible. Um
Yeah.
uh
Yeah. Didn't never
and
met the guy in my life.
yeah, amazing. And I can only imagine, and I'm really glad that you brought up excuse me, that I'm glad you brought up the alcohol aspect of this because it was in my mind and I had it written down, the word alcohol, because I was hoping that it would come up. And
Yeah.
I want, because I've known you, I've known you my whole life. I've seen
Oh,
you.
really?
I've seen you.
Yep.
I've seen you, we partied together growing up through high school,
Yep.
and I've seen you grow into an adult, and I've seen what you're like when you're drinking, and I've seen what you're like when you're sober. And it's night and day. And I think that quitting alcohol is probably one of the most significant things that that you've ever done. And I think that
Mm,
it's just so inspiring to me. And it's going to be, like you said, how impactful it was on someone that you don't even know. I want
yeah.
more people to be able to be inspired by this because there might be somebody listening who is in a similar
Mm,
place and who maybe this
mm,
type of lifestyle is for them, is to switch their lifestyle as well. So,
totally.
you've talked about it a bit, but I like is there anything else that you can share around this? Like what was it like before?
Totally.
What is it like now? And what did it take for you to get to this point? And what is the benefit? Like what's the impact that it's had?
For sure, Carmen. And again, I love your questions because again, they're good questions bring good answers, right? And your questions are very, very impactful for me. And I hope impactful for your listeners because if you asked me a year ago when I ever quit drinking, I'd tell you to take a hike. I'd say, nope, I'm okay. I don't have an issue. I don't have a problem. It's like, this is for me. This is who I used to be. And I never really took drinking as like something that was a bad thing or a good thing to quit drinking or whatever, right? It's good and bad. And it was really weird how it happened. And, in full transparency, like, yeah, I was a shit disturber when I was drinking. And I would be out of control and I would be some points blatantly disrespectful and making all of the decisions that are putting bad things around who I am and who my personality is. And basically anything that came from drinking 95% of the time were negative things, negative impacts, negative connotations, negative reflections of who I was. And part of that, like that quitting change in my mind, was around BBA and the things that I learned about myself. And I just started to like really, like, again, I pulled over to the side of the road and instead of just changing my tire, I had to change my whole freaking car. Like, I threw my life out of the window and said, I am not this person. Now, was that easy? No. Was that something that everyone can do? No, it's not. To be completely honest, I'm going to just be straight up. This is not a thing that is very easy.
Can I just
Now,
interrupt for
again,
one? Can I interrupt for one
yeah, of
moment? Sorry.
course.
Just to clarify, because a few times you've said BBA and one time you said Boston Breakthrough. I'm just going to clarify for the people. When I
Yeah,
say next level and Hugh says BBA
that's
and
right.
Boston Breakthrough, those are all the same thing. It used to be
Got
called
it.
BBA and now it's called next
Yes.
level. So just so that no one is confused. So just to give context around, because you said that that was a big thing for you
Yeah,
in this change. So just so people
totally.
understand what you're talking about, it's the next level leadership training that I was talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for noticing that, Carmen. And again, blinders are on. Like for me, when I took the course, it was called Boston Breakthrough Academy, BBA. And by the time Carmen did it, it was a connection with another course called Next Level. And so for you, it was Next Level, and for me, it was BBA. So thank you for pointing that out. So when I was in that course with Next Level and BBA, I learned one of the things about myself that again, this kind of ties into like this value that I would hold for myself, like keeping my word and the value of how I choose to operate. Like my perception of my value was when I was in BBA was quite low. Like I didn't value myself and I valued other people's opinions more than my own and I was willing and committed to more people than I was to myself. I could make a commitment to you, Carmen, and I wouldn't break that commitment until it was complete. If I made a commitment to myself, I would try. I would try, and if it was easy, and I know what I'm doing, or there was just a disconnect from my commitments to myself versus my commitments to other people. Now I use that actually as a benefit. I used that disconnect that I had with myself and posted it on my Facebook with my group and said, I'm not going to be drinking anymore. I didn't say for how long. I didn't say I'm quitting forever. I'm not saying I'm quitting for a day. I just said, hey, I'm not drinking. And I knew that if I could commit to showing everyone, not only in my course, but everyone that follows me on Facebook and Instagram, I am committed to multiple people, not just myself. And so when I go out to parties, and the first couple of weeks that I stopped drinking, and I would go to that environment, I would say, "Oh, but if I drink, like I'm not letting me down. I'm letting everyone else down." And I was not going to let that happen, right? Because I valued their opinions more than I valued my own opinions, right? And so that was a big thing that I leveraged. Again, this right and wrong thing. Like you could look at that perspective of like, hey, that's not a very good thing to like value other people's opinions more than your own opinions. Yeah, maybe. But I knew that that's who I was, and I used that to my benefit. I said, okay, I know this is true. I know this is a fact. I know that I can work to, work on this and learn to respect myself. But I just know that this is true. This is what it is. And so I just use it to my benefit. I said, hey, I don't keep my own word to myself. So if I just say I'm going to quit drinking and don't tell anyone, then probably by next weekend I'm going to drink again. But if I commit to 40 people in my course and maybe 800 or 900 people on my Facebook and Instagram, then holy shit, like if they see me on someone's, story drinking a bottle of champagne or something, then I'm not committed to them or to myself, right? And so again, that ties into like, is that mentality a good thing or a bad thing? I used it for good. I didn't respect my own word, but I respected my word to other people. So I just used it, right? And so again, that's where I just came in neutral and I said, okay, this is the way that I operate. I can choose to do this or I can choose to do that. And I chose to do this and it went that direction. And here I am a year later, not drinking still. Now, do I value myself more than the opinions of others? I'm working on that. And I know that that is to be true. Eventually, I will get there. And to be personally honest, I don't think I'm there yet. And I'm okay with that because I noticed that when I can use those things about who I am as a person to my lifestyle and to my compounding life, I can then take those things I'm aware of and use it to my benefit because I just know that that's who I am. And so we learn these things over time. And, maybe I would have learned that about myself if I had done this course 10 years from now. But instead, I took this course and then I learned that about myself and I used it. Right. And so, again, like there could be a big difference between knowing a bunch of things and doing a bunch of things. Right. Like I could know every single thing about the entire world of business. But if I've never once had a personal conversation and learned how to shake someone's hand, it doesn't matter if I'm the smartest guy in the entire room, then I'm not going to know how to do an actual action taking. And so there's this fine line of, am I being smart or am I just taking action? Because like there's this revolving door of more information, social media, networking events, this upscaled sales pitch and things like that. And, if I had not taken that course, do I think that at some point in my life I would cut out drinking? Probably, but it may not be for another till I'm 30 or 35 or 40 or maybe even never, right? And so, that was part of what I learned about myself and how I chose to use that thing I learned about myself. And that's what's very impactful about this course is that you learn about yourself, you learn to discover yourself and to break through those barriers and to lead yourself into the next step of your life that you want. Because I learned that that's who I was. I learned about myself that that's just that's the way my brain works. So if I commit to Carmen, I'm going to be holding a higher standard to that commitment than if I just tell myself this in front of the mirror and try to get inspired. And so I knew that that was just true. And so I said, you know what? Well, who and what can I do to expose this commitment to as many people as possible? So I posted on my Instagram. I posted it on my Facebook. I committed to it in my course. And now I've got over 1,000 people that know that I've committed to not drinking. Now, if you want to get more detailed, you can commit a time frame and stick to that time frame. Like there's value in different ways. And I chose not to put a timeline on it because do I plan to drink for never again? Like maybe. I don't know. But right now, I know to be true that I didn't drink yesterday. I'm going to be better than that guy did yesterday, just by 1%, right? Um, and so, for any listeners out there that are going through things around drug abuse or drinking or anything around that sort of coping mechanism lifestyle, it could be smoking weed, it could be doing drugs, it could be anything. It could be working out. Like you could literally be working out and using that as a way to cope. But at least for me, I know that if I do that at the gym, I'm coming out as a better person, right? If I go to the bar to cope with something, I'm not coming home as a better person. I'm going to be laying in bed hungover for the next 2 days, right? And so for anyone out there that is considering not drinking or wanting to take a break or learn what that takes, I think that there's going to be a different way to do it for everyone. Like, it's not an easy thing to do. I chose not to drink, and I just chose not to go to parties. I chose not to go to bars for at least 2 or 3 months. I just didn't go out. I just started 75 hard, and I didn't even know that I could stop drinking until I did 75 hard. And then even when I finished and I hadn't committed to not drinking, I started drinking again. That's okay, right? Like, that's 75 days. I actually didn't drink during the challenge. And then I finished and completed. And then I started drinking again. Whereas now, like, even when I'm done the challenge and part of it is required to not drink, I'm still going to choose not to drink. And for anyone out there that wants to learn about that, is again the environment, right? Maybe you need, the environment of AA, or maybe you just need to talk to the source of where that problem maybe is coming from. Maybe it's because of your mom or your dad being an alcoholic. That's not an easy thing to do, and that's okay. Like, that is going to be challenging, and like we were talking about earlier, Carmen, like when you do that challenge, you are building your self-confidence because you did something that was very hard, but is the right thing to do. And so I just knew deep down that drinking is not something that benefits my life, and I had to shift and learn how to use my characteristics that work for me on how to not do that thing, which is drinking, whether that's other things in your life that you may need to cut out of, whatever that thing is for you. Mine was drinking. I knew that I do not have good outcomes when I drink. And I know that if I commit to other people, I'm going to hold my ass to that commitment because I don't want to let that person down. I don't mind letting myself down. As shitty as that sounds to say, I'm okay with letting myself down because I can live with that. But I can't live the fact that I let my sister down, or I let my parents down, or I let my brother down, or I let my friends down, right? My loved ones. If I let that down, that shit hurts, right? That's just for me. So, that environment around being with people, whether it's going to AA, and maybe you're young, maybe you're super young, maybe you're not even old enough to drink yet. There's probably listeners here that aren't even of age to drink, but maybe are still drinking and are seeing that. And, if I could give one piece of advice, is like, know what is in your way and what's holding you back, and find people that have overcome those things, right? Like, it's not an easy thing for me to do, even still now. Like, I don't think that when I want to go out and I see a nice bottle of scotch, that's kind of like what my go-to was. Like, if I saw that there, I would love to smell it. I could smell it on the person's breath beside me. And it was like this temptation, right? And then I'd be like, oh, you know what? I'm not drinking because I told my family I wasn't going to drink. I told my friends, I told people in my course that I'm committed to, that I'm not going to drink. And so that standard is held higher than if it was just me to myself. So that's just what worked for me, Carmen. So anyone out there that wants to stop drinking or using drugs, is like, what works for me might not work for you. And maybe it does work for you. Try it and see if you can. It's not easy to post on Facebook and say, hey, like, this is what I'm committed to doing. I'm not going to drink. I'm going to check in with you next week. It's like, holy shit, that's not an easy thing to do either, right? Like, I'm not saying that's easy. It's really not. It may sound easy, but for the first 3 to 4 months, I just didn't go out. I stopped hanging out with, the people I used to be friends with. And so that really can impact your environment around staying true to those commitments too, right? Because if you go to the bar with your friends every weekend, but you don't drink, eventually you're either going to have one of two things happen. You're either going to drink, or you're going to stop going to that freaking bar. One of those two things are going to happen. It's like, which one's going to happen first? I knew that if I went to the bar, eventually I would just drink. So I just stopped going there. I stopped going there. And I started going to the gym. I started going for walks. I started going on a meetup.com and going to like a networking event about whatever I wanted. Go join a book club, go join a chess class, right? Like, go play a video game or something. Do something, right? Whether that something is watching a movie, right? Like, that's fine. That is better than drinking, because if I go out and drink till 2 in the morning, sleep until noon, maybe 1 p.m., and then I'm hungover. But if I spend 2 hours watching a movie and go to bed by midnight, it's like, cool. I just saved myself all of that repetition of, that negative impact in my life. And that's definitely something that even still to this day, like, it still blows my mind that I don't drink. Like, I could literally say it and be like, holy shit, like I just like when I just said in 1 month it'll be a year, I'm still like, holy shit, like it still doesn't even seem real to me. I'm just like, but then when I go out, I'm like, yo, I'm good. Like I have no temptation. There are sometimes that I have the temptation, but now I'm just kind of like, dude, I'm good, man. Like have fun. And I don't look at anyone that drinks like less or anything like that. Like I don't care if people drink. I just know who I am, and I'm learning more about how the things I can like what things I can do to build respect for myself, right? Like I respect myself when I come home and I'm driving home sober and I go to bed and I wake up and I go to the gym. When I'm hungover, I don't wake up and go to the gym. I wake up and I order McDonald's breakfast and some, like junk food and watch movies all day. And so it's like, okay, that's that compound effect, like you were mentioning. So that's like the story around the alcohol for me.
Oh, respect
Yeah,
feeling. Uh,
hey,
yeah, thanks for sharing that. Really, thank you
of
for
course.
being vulnerable, talking about your struggles with alcohol and what it took to overcome it, and for kind of showing people what really it can look like as a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah,
And for any
totally.
any type of thing, it's when it's hard at first and it becomes so easy. And now I'm
Yeah,
really happy to see it's easy for you now, and you're enjoying the fruits of your hard work earlier.
it's not easy. It still is not easy, and I think I might have actually said that. Like, it's getting easier, but it's still not easy. Like, there are still times where I'm like, shit, I would love to drink that. I would love to go to party. When I'm on a date and I'm drinking water and she's drinking a glass of wine, I'm like, this is kind of awkward. And then, but like, you know what? That again comes to my perception. Is this good or is this bad? It's like, oh shit, you know what I mean? So it's like, yes, I'm growing in the direction I want to go, but I'm not there yet. And I know that as long as I know that yesterday I didn't drink, and if I'm going to be better than I did yesterday, then I'm on the right track.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's really inspiring. And so before we finish, I just want to also ask there just around the 75 hard.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, I think, level one, and there's three levels, right? I don't think you've
Hmm.
mentioned. So
Good
are you now
question.
in level two or level three, or can you just give us an idea of what that is looking like?
Yeah. No, I'm glad you touched on that. That's a great question. So again, there's two dynamics to Andy Frisella's mental toughness program, which is 75 hard and live hard. So 75 hard is the introduction. It's the training to the marathon. And it's the pre-game warm-up, right? So 75 hard for those 75 days is the warm-up for a live hard program. Now, when I started it back in 2018, I'd never done anything more than the 75 hard until 2022, last year, where I did the entire year program. So 75 hard is the introduction. So you do that 75 days in its entirety. You then can move on to phase one, two, and three. So there's three more phases after that, where they're 30 days and there's extra things that are included on top of the two workouts and the water and the reading and the photo and diet and stuff. So that was another really impactful experience for me to not only just do 75 hard, but then upgrade that program three more times throughout the year was really profound. It really created this momentum, and Andy talks about this a lot in his podcast about the momentum that we carry for ourselves, right? And so, if I didn't drink yesterday, it's easier for me not to drink today. If I didn't eat candy yesterday, it's easier for me not to eat candy today, right? And so now think 75 days later when you've done all these things, it's like you hit day 76 and then you're like, oh shit, what do I do? Right? Like you're kind of like, haha, do I go out and celebrate and eat a shitload of junk food and go party and drink a bunch of booze? And it's like, to be honest, for me, I did that. And you know what? That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing right or wrong here. It's like, what do you want next? Right? You've completed this. What can I do next? Right? And so he's created this program to allow for you to get to that next level and strive for more and take the next step. And so The next three phases are just increased in impact, increased in challenge, increased in tasks to do. And they go from 75 days to 30 days. So you do the first 75 days, you can go into phase one on day 76. You start phase one, and that's 30 days. Um, there's quite a few things that are added on top of the other things we spoke about. And I don't want to misinform exactly what those things are because I'm not on that phase and it's been a little while since I've done it because of the new when last year when I did 75 the first part of the year and then phase one and two and three. So it was quite a while ago that I had done it. So if you want to know about it, you can go look on Live Hard program. You can Google Andy Frisella Live Hard. You'll find it there. You can listen to the podcast about what those details are. But just to give you a perspective, it's all of those things I just mentioned around 2 workouts and water and reading, plus more things. Some of the things that I just off the top of my head that were impactful was a conversation with a stranger, right? Like just go talk to somebody you've never met. Another one that I really loved was a random act of kindness. And I actually caught myself doing that twice today, where I was walking to the gym and there was this family and they were trying to take a selfie. And I was like, hey, do you want to take this photo for you? And they're like, oh my God, yes. It was like this Filipino family. They're like all excited. The kids were like, oh, thank you, thank you. So I took the photo for them. And then, like, instead of it being like this sort of okay looking selfie, it was like a really nice, good family portrait shot. And all I had to do was see her kind of like struggling to like take a selfie. And I was just like, hey, do you want to take this photo for you? Just a random act of kindness, right? And then on the way back from the gym, the exact same thing happened. There was another person trying to take a photo. It was a lady taking a photo of her husband, and her husband was by himself, standing there. And then she was like kind of far away from him, trying to take a selfie with him. And I was like, "Do you want me to take this photo for you?" And it was the two things in the same day. Um, but it's like that to them was like amazing. When with maybe they were traveling here, and now instead of them having this okay looking selfie, they've got like a beautiful family photo right in Cole Harbor facing the seaplanes and against Grouse Mountain that got all this fresh snow today, right? So the mountains were beautiful because it's been snowing the last couple of days, right? And it's got the Cole Harbor waterfront station there, the gas station out in the water, and it's just this beautiful photo that was not going to look as good for a selfie. And so I did this random act of kindness that, to me, it wasn't a huge impact, right? Like it is a huge impact when you do that consistently because what you do to others is what's going to come back to you, right? And I just know and believe that in the universe that is how the world works. And so eventually, like that good quality energy is going to come back to me. And other things that I would do for a random act of kindness when I was in that phase was, I would be out on my outdoor workout and I would just bring a garbage bag and I would just pick up garbage as I'm doing my workout and just walking. And I just pick up garbage or I'd hold the door open for somebody or I'd buy the person that behind me a coffee. So there's a lot of extra things to add on to that, those phases as you go through the challenge. And the reason that Andy has those there for you is so that when you hit day 76, you're not just like, okay, let's go party. And now I'm complete. And now I'm this superhuman and I'm perfect. Right. And it's like, no, 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 no. Like you got to keep doing it. Right. You got to keep going. You got to learn and sharpen that tool a little bit more. Right. And I think that that's something that he does very well. And then there's a part in between phase one and phase two. So there's 75 hard, phase one, and then there's phase two. And in between the phase one and two, you have to wait 30 days before you can start. And that was really hard for me because you've got all this momentum, you're fired up, you're energized, and you want to just crush it, right? Now, did I go to work out twice a day? Most of the time in that gap, yes, but not every day did I go for a run. Did I go to the gym at least? Yes, because I enjoy going to the gym. It keeps me calm, it keeps me grounded, but not always going for a run. Sometimes I would go out for dinner and I would eat, some chicken wings that are deep fried or something like that, right? And so it allowed you to like have this mandatory gap of time where you can choose to stay where you just got to. You can stay there and continue to do those same things, or you can go back to the way you used to be, not eating healthy, drinking alcohol, not drinking water, not reading, right? So it's like it requires you to take this 30-day gap to allow yourself to see am I going to hold a word to myself, or am I going to hold a word to this challenge? And that's something I learned about myself too, right? It's like, yes, I chose to eat some crappy food. I love candy. Like I chose to do that. And is that the wrong or the right thing? No, neither. It's neither right nor wrong. It's just part of why it's there. And that's part of the challenge. And so it's like, cool. All right. I enjoy sugar. If you guys want to buy me an ice cream, I'm down. But wait till I'm done 75 hard. Because otherwise I'm gonna say no. But yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, Carmen, around the extra phases, because it's like when we strive for greatness, Carmen, it's a continuation of growth, and it's a continuation of pursuit to have things in that momentum, right? That momentum creates more and it builds more on top of itself. And it's that snowball effect that eventually you take a little snowball and you roll it across the ground in some snow, and eventually you've got a big snowman, right? And so it builds on itself. And so that's why he has it for one full calendar year, which I'm committed to doing this year as well, is the 75 hard and the three other phases. And the start of January, I'm on tomorrow's day 4 for me. When I look at myself last year, I was on, day 30 or, 31, I guess, today, right? And so it's like, is that wrong or is that right? No, it's just I'm on my path. And was I more fired up and more committed and didn't have to restart in the first month? Last year, I did. I kept going through January, and I made mistakes other places where I restarted. But you know what, Carmen? I'm just like, it's time to let go of these vices that are just full of negativity and full of criticism and controlling and efforts around doing the right versus the wrong. And I'm fucking done with it. And it's like, because that literally carries no weight for me. There's no benefit for me to think that way. There's literally no upside. And that was part of like how I chose not to drink, was like, when I go out and drink, do I like, how much percentage of this time that I'm spending drinking are good quality impacts? And I was like, maybe 5% of the times that I drink, does something actually good happen in my life where I'm like, shit, I'm glad I went out and drank. 5%, maybe. And that's generous. So, anyway, long winded answer to that extra phase and all that stuff. So, if you want to know the details and why it's important to do the entire Live Hard program, it took me 3 years of trying 75 hard, just different times of the year, to actually commit and to complete it in the calendar year. Was in 2022. And I'm committed to doing it again this year, because I know that when I'm done 75 hard, I'm going to be like, oh shit, day 76? Or is it day 1 of phase 1? Is it day 2, day 3? Is it phase 2? Is it phase 3? And it's like, it allows me to continue.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see where you go. I'm really excited to see how much growth is going to happen in the next year, the next 3 years. And I have a feeling you're going to continue, whether you continue with 75 hard the rest of your life. What I know is that the impact it's had on you will never leave. It'll be there forever. And I'm excited to see what comes into your life because of this. I'm really, really
Thanks.
excited. And
Yeah, and that's the cool thing. That's the great thing about being a human, is like, we get to make choices, and I get to choose whenever I want. If I want to drink again, I can choose to literally crack a beer right now if I wanted to, right? But I'm choosing not to, and I'm holding that higher standard other than just myself, right? Because I know, like you said, Carmen, like, you saw who I was when I was drinking, and you see who I'm at now, and we know that those paths aren't aligned, right? Those are not the same things that I want here versus here. So for any listeners out there that are going through these kind of things, is ask for support, ask questions. If you guys want to DM me on Instagram, you can follow me on Instagram and shoot me a DM, and I would love to even organize a call if you have questions. My Instagram is hugh.realestate. If you want to reach me, you can shoot me a DM. I'm more than happy to support anybody. You can reach out to Carmen, comment on her podcast or on her channel, and say, how do I find this guy Hugh? He's super handsome and I want to go on a date with him. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, no, totally, Carmen. And just for any of your listeners out there, and male, female, whoever's interested in learning more about this journey, I'm here to support anyone that is interested.
thank you for
Of
that.
course.
Um, Yeah, and do you want to talk about any about your plans for the future? There's some exciting things coming up for you. Yeah, anything else that you want to talk about before we end
Well,
here?
I think, this role is getting reversed here because you've inspired me, Carmen. What you're doing with your traveling and your podcasts and social media, and not just that, but like the reason that that's impacting me is because it's authentic. It's true, and it's who you are as a person, Carmen. And the rest of the world gets to see that. And it's inspiring me to go after new dreams, new possibilities, and new goals and dreams that I want in my life. And so I've decided to move to New Zealand. My company, EXP Realty, is the number one growing brokerage in the world globally. And they are, for an easy analogy, is like Uber disrupted the taxi industry, right? Netflix disrupted Blockbuster because they took this old school traditional model that was working, that is no longer an actual working model now that we have technology and resources through the internet. That's what EXP is doing. EXP is disrupting the traditional brick and mortar brokerages like Remax and Century 21, and so on and so forth, around it being a debt free company. EXP is the only realty company that's debt free, because all of our stuff is through the metaverse. We have a metaverse online where we can get agent support, get training. We've got over 80 hours of live training every week. We've got access to managing brokers. For an example, I'm here in Vancouver and I'm going to move to New Zealand and transfer my license and stay with EXP in New Zealand because it opened up there in the second quarter of last year. And I'm going to just go sell houses in New Zealand. And that's like, there's no limitations with companies that are disrupting the markets, whether it's a market of taxis or movies or real estate, right? And that is something that I'm taking advantage of because I know that I love building relationships with people, and I really enjoy being able to help families get into their forever homes and upgrade from their condos to a townhouse or buy a detached house. And that process and that journey of supporting other families through that purchasing process, or selling a home, is a lot of stress. It's a lot of headache. It's a lot of cleaning. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of legality stuff. And do I like that side of the stuff? Not really, but I mean, nobody really does. But I know that I enjoy more going for showings and taking the kids out and seeing the backyards and talking about the schools and the communities. And so EXP is just such an impact in the industry as a global company that it's allowed me to have this freedom to pick up my life and move across the world and continue my lifestyle and meet new people and meet new connections and see family that I haven't seen in over 10 years, and just this completely new environment. And to sell a house here in Vancouver is going to be about 85 to 90% the exact same as selling a house in New Zealand. The only difference is a couple of contracts and a couple of terminologies, and it's not going to be the exact same, but the the rule of thumb around the business and how to operate as a successful agent is still the same basics. And so I'm very thankful to have the environment that I was around when I first got into the real estate space, joining a team, finding somebody to coach me and invest in that team so that I can learn and know the industry and grow. And so that's given me the confidence to do this. And on top of that, you, Carmen, have given me that confidence to know that I can just go and just say, fuck it, I'm going to move to New Zealand. And sorry if I'm not supposed to swear on your podcast. I don't really
Yeah,
know
we can
what the
swear.
deal is here, Carmen,
We
but
can swear. It's no problem.
awesome. Well, I don't want to, steer away all the kids or anything, but I just want to be myself too. So I just said, fuck it, I'm going to move to New Zealand. And I made that decision within like a day and a half. Mom was like, hey, Christmas is around the corner, and, I'd love for you to go meet Carmen in New Zealand. And maybe we could just, like, your Christmas present would be like a little flight there and back and just come back in a month. And I was like, yeah, I'm down. I was looking at flights. I was going to book a round trip there and back for a month. And then the next day, I talked to Phil and my mentors around EXP and just taking a little vacation to New Zealand. And then, next thing you know, he's like, dude, EXP just opened there. like literally like 4 or 5 months ago. Like you could just go there and sell houses if you want. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna think about that. And then like 6 hours later, I'm like, yep, I'm gonna go. So that was all part of the journey.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's funny. My decision to kind of move, or to at least to travel for a year is how it kind of,
Mm.
my when that decision came to me, you were the first person I told actually. And
Really? I didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah, and I had the epiphany that day, and I was like, it just came out of nowhere. And then
Mhm.
I just, ruminated on it for a few hours, and I was like kind of doubting myself, going back and forth. But within that day, and I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody until I figure out what I want to do. I need to think about it on my own first before I get other opinions. And then you came over like a couple hours after I had this epiphany, and I'm like, you guess what? Guess what I'm doing? and
Totally.
and just like seeing you, and I was like, I wasn't even planning to tell you, or you and mom were together, uh and it just like I was like, no, I'm crystal clear. And I think that, yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny. You had the same thing, because I think that we are very in tune with our intuition, because we have very
totally.
quite a spiritual upbringing. We're
Totally.
very personal development, very go for your goals, and that side of it. And then we're also very spiritual, very in tune with our who we are as a person, what our intuition is telling us, and it just gets easier and easier. So I'm so happy that you're able to follow what feels right for you,
Mm.
in that same way, but in your own way. And it's really beautiful to see that
Thanks, Car.
unfold for you. And I'm so excited to see you in New Zealand,
I
because for those of you who
know.
don't know,
Let's
I'm going to New
go.
Zealand too.
I know. I'm excited. I'm
Yeah.
excited. Awesome.
Yeah. Hugh, do you have anything else that you want to share? Is there anything else that's lingering that you feel like anybody should listen to right now about anything?
Not really. I think we've touched on a lot of the key aspects that I think are, or at least I hope are impactful for others. I think again, I just want to reach out and just say, hey, the best thing that you can do is to connect with those people that are going through the things that you're going through. Find people that are looking for those results. Find people that have those results and try to connect with them. Try to get in front of them. Try to join them and introduce yourself. Go to networking events. Go to creativity, pottery classes if you like making pottery, or painting classes like you were doing, Carmen. Going to artist competitions, or for me, it was going to networking events and seminars, and the thing that you want that's important for you as the listener, like whatever's important to you, surround yourself, go around, find those people, find those events, find those networks, and introduce yourself to them. See people that you like, see someone that connects with you. If you see them speaking on the stage or they're just sitting beside you, and you get a little bit of a connection and you see some alignment together in that goal that you're going towards, ask them for their phone number, ask them for their Facebook, ask them for their Instagram, and stay in connection with them, because the people that are like that and have what you want or are going to what you want in your life, they want to share it with you, right? Like they want to have you be successful. They want to see you grow. They want to see you have a good life, because I know from my experience that like this guy that came up and talked to me about drinking I've never met in my life, that like made me feel so good to hear this person say to me like, hey, I've had a family of alcoholics, I've had this struggle in my life, and like you're inspiring me. And like so I took that guy's phone number and I followed up with him, and he didn't follow up with me. I followed up with him. And so like you'd be really surprised at how many people out there want to support you and give you a helping hand. And so all you have to do is just let people know, talk to them, show them, be vulnerable. And that's not easy, but you got to do it anyway. So it just to tie it all together is just embrace the uncomfortable. Be okay and be comfortable. Like learn to find comfort in discomfort. And so feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Carmen, leave us a comment. Just try to connect with us or anyone else that's out there in your environment that you think is going to be impactful for you. And I think that will get you to the next step and start that compounding effect to where you want to go.
Mm. Yes. Yes, yes, a million times. Um, One thing I have written down here, just something that I want to say, because it was to something that you were saying way
Yeah.
earlier in our conversation. And it's a quote that I heard in Next Level Breakthrough, leadership training. Uh, let's see. Today's ceiling is tomorrow's floor. Something like
Yes.
that, or
Yep. That's right.
yesterday's
Today's
ceiling is
ceiling
today's
is
floor.
tomorrow's floor. Exactly. And that's like that 1% rule, right? Like I know yesterday that I could do 54 push-ups, but today I'm gonna do 55.
Yeah.
And that yesterday was my top. And the next day, it's where I get to start from because I know I can do that. I know I can complete this. I am successful at accomplishing that. So I like day 76. I know I can do 75 hard. Well, let's see if I can do phase one. Oh, shit. I can do phase one. Let's see if I can do phase two. Oh, shit. I just went 2 months without drinking. Oh, shit. Next month, it's a year. It's like, holy crap. So it's like that continuation and that environment is you hit it right on the head, Carmen. Good job.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being on this interview with me. You're my third interview, and this is something that I've been looking forward to since I started the podcast. You're a huge inspiration to me every single day. I'm so blessed to have someone like you as a role model for me, and it's really amazing we get to be role models for each other. And I'm excited to grow with you, and I'm excited to have you on here again in the future and see what breakthroughs have come to talk about next. And I love you so much. Oh, and he just fell off the call. That's hilarious. Perfect timing though, eh? It's all right. He got the gist of it. Let's see if he hops back on here. But you guys get it. I'm gonna link Hugh's Instagram and yeah, I'll link Hugh's Instagram. I will link the links to the website that you can find the 75 hard challenge. And yeah, like he said, feel free to get in contact with us and leave a review. Let us know how you enjoyed the podcast and what you think of my brother. Isn't he amazing? Yes, he's single, ladies, by the way. He's not here for me to say this, but yeah, he's so thank you for listening. It's been a long episode, definitely my longest episode by far, and I knew that would happen, and I love it. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm just going to say thank you on Hugh's behalf. I know he was probably going to say, thanks for having me, and thank you for listening to him. So I appreciate you giving us the space to have this conversation, and I hope that it was impactful for you. So I love you all, and take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Friendly Frequencies podcast. I would absolutely love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes and also Spotify or wherever you're listening to the podcast through. And what I will do is for anybody that leaves me a review and sends me a screenshot through Instagram, I will personally send you my 30+ hour playlist. This playlist is very special to me. It has been crafted by me for the last 3 years, and I've never met a person who does not love it. And this is just another way that we can be beautifully connected through creativity. So send me a picture of your review. My Instagram is Friendly Frequencies, and I cannot wait to share this music with you. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening and for supporting me along this journey. I appreciate you. I love you, and have a good one. I'll see you next week.